And I'm joined now by somebody that we talk to almost every year, and I'm always happy to have you, Andy Davis from Trig Avionics, all the way from Scotland. Very nice to have you here.
Thanks, Tom, and it's great to be here.
We've got a couple of new things that you brought out at the beginning of the show with the new product introductions. One of them looks like is a radio, the other an audio panel. We'll start with the radio. What have we got?
Well, it's the T196 and T197. Actually, two radios. One is a 10 watt and the other a 16 watt radio. Otherwise, the features are exactly the same. It's a full-featured VHF COM radio, has a built-in stereo intercom, and you can connect music to it as well, so you can have tunes while you fly. In that mode, it provides a complete solution for a smaller panel, because it can act as the hub of all of the audio that's going in there. On a larger aircraft, obviously, you can wire it into a conventional audio panel, and we'll be talking about the audio panel later. And so that provides all of the features you need. There's a couple of neat things that we put into the product. It has a pilot-controlled memory, so the pilot can put in his favorite airfields and frequencies and can look them up as they go along. Unlike some of the previous radios, that can be quite a big memory. You can have hundreds of entries. So we actually provided a little USB stick so that you can load it off, put it back on again as a backup. But the cool thing that allows you to do is you can actually edit it offline. You can stick that same USB stick into your computer, edit the memory, and you can create your own favorite trip memory or specific for a journey you're going to make. Put the frequencies in and then look them up very easily.
Is that a piece of software then that you would have to install on your computer to, or
nope.
is it just like a data file?
It's just a CSV file, a comma separated variables file, which you can open in Excel or even in a text editor and just edit it by hand. It's an easy format.
What was it that, because the Trig radios we've always talked about in the past have been very small, didn't take up a lot of real estate on the panel. Now you're coming up to something that's more of a standard panel slot.
That's correct. The compact radios were intended to go into either a 2¼ inch instrument hole or even smaller, and they're remote mounts so that you can take the bulk of the radio and put it away from the panel. That's really important in some of the light sport and the warbirds and people like that, where they really don't have the real estate or they want it to look small and cute. Having said that, the classic Cessnas, Pipers, all the mainstream stuff all have the 6¼ inch wide panel stack in the middle, and we wanted a radio solution for those guys as well. In fact, we're trying to build out a more complete stack solution. We already have the TT31 transponder, which is a 6¼ inch conventional stack transponder. We've got the radio coming along, and the audio panel will add to that stack solution as well.
So let's move on and talk about the audio panel just a little bit, because this is also something that has been just introduced here at the show, and it's a really again, it goes in the standard rack size. You're going to build just a nice center stack for almost any production airplane.
That's the idea. And with the audio panel, it allows switching between two COM radios. As I said, if you have only the one COM radio, then you can get everything you need with the built-in intercom in the standalone radio. But if you have a couple, you need a separate audio panel to select between them. The audio panel has its own built-in intercom. It can do 4-place, or the high-end TMA-45 can do a 6-place intercom. And then you can select between nav radios, DMEs, ADFs, and other things that are in the stack. It also can drive a cabin speaker, so you can get audio out. And again, it has music features. So both of them allow you to connect a music source and route the music to your headphones and listen to tunes as you go along. The top of the line model is the TMA-45. It actually has a Bluetooth interface, and it's a full stereo system, so you can have stereo music with real high quality. As well, with the Bluetooth interface, you can connect to telephone. So if you have your iPhone, you can dial, receive calls right there on your headset in the cockpit. TMA-44 is a more cost-effective version. It's only mono, so you don't get the full stereo functionality and doesn't have the telephone interface. But otherwise, it's a very similar switching, very simple to use setup. I should say they both also include the marker beacon receiver, which is fairly standard now in audio panels, and so it has the indicator lights and the marker beacon.
You know, when I first started flying, nobody had an audio panel. or if you did, you knew you had arrived because you could put an audio panel in your airplane. I know that my primary flight instruction was done without the benefit of a headset, which means your flight instructor is yelling at you all the time. That's
their job, though.
Well, that is their job after all. But when you get into things like this, they've not only become really standard equipment in airplanes, but it does make for a much safer, a much more easy to communicate environment inside the cockpit, and you don't wind up with tinnitus after 10 years of flying.
Absolutely. I think nobody nowadays would set out to learn to fly with a hand mic and a cabin speaker. The use of good headphones now really does make it a more soothing environment. And in fact, the audio panels that we're doing include additional noise reduction on some of the discrete inputs, as well as digital sampling on the intercom, so that the squelch doesn't break and you get a very relaxed environment. And it's because of that improvement that we're getting in audio panels and in the radios. They're not as crackly, they're much crisper and cleaner. And again, digital signal processing is helping us do that in the radios. So you get a much more calm, better communication environment, much easier to hear what the air traffic control guys are saying, much easier to communicate on the intercom. And it's because you've got that much improved environment that people are saying, well, great, now I can listen to music and really have quite a soothing thing, which would have been impossible, certainly when I started to learn to fly as well. That would have, it wasn't like that. It was clattery and noisy, and that's how you flew.
And of course, none of us had a smartphone that we wanted to talk to anybody with.
Well, yeah, that kind of made Bluetooth less useful to us 20 years ago.
20 years ago, it certainly did. I want to talk with you, Andy, a little bit, because you do operate also in Europe and through EASA. What are some of the differences in working with EASA and working with the FAA and bringing products like this to market?
Good question. At a top-level regulatory point of view, they are very similar. It's all based on bilaterals nowadays. The FAA accepts EASA certs, EASA accepts FAA certs. There is some diligence that goes on to separate them out, but yes, it's because we are based in Europe. The first cert that we always get on anything that we do is always an EASA cert, which is then through the bilaterals converted into an FAA cert as well. It's no different to, I don't know, Bombardier in Canada always starts with a Canadian cert and then ends up with an FAA cert. So that's the process by which we go through. The standards are now pretty much universal. It used to be in the past that there were different variations on the standards for transponders, radios even, and things like that in different countries. But the basic technical work now is unified, and a lot of work has gone on in that with making European Part 23 the same as FAA Part 23. Although, funnily enough, that's changing in the Part 23 rewrite. I think Europe's winning at the moment, since we've got our notice of proposed amendment out and the NPRM's not out from the FAA. But broadly, they're very close in lockstep now. It really is a global industry, and we all just work together in the same way.
What about the pilot communities in the US versus Europe?
Pilot communities are a little different. They're different because of different ways we use airspace and different ways that we fly. In Europe, there are a lot less, in private pilot sense, instrument-rated pilots, for instance. Far more of the pilots are straight VFR flyers, and therefore they have different use of some of the equipment and different use of the airspace. Here in the US, there's a lot more instrument-rated private pilots, and so flying on instruments is different. In Europe, the airspace is divided a little bit differently as well. Interesting enough, in Europe, we have a whole lot more completely free airspace. There's a lot more Class G airspace in Europe where you can do what you like. Whereas over here, Class G is on the little stripe at the bottom, and for the most part, people are flying in letter airspace and therefore have different set of rules. So there are some differences that affect it, but ultimately, it doesn't matter where you are. The best bit is going out to the airplane, starting up and just going and drilling a hole in the sky for fun.
They don't call them bug smashers for nothing.
Well, that's right.
And the other thing that I find interesting when we look at the difference between the two, I think it's CSAR is the next gen of your
yeah.
Where is a company like Trig? Are you having to be concerned anything about the kind of next gen functionality and what it is that you're making, or with Cesar as they move into this kind of next generation of navigation?
Yes, we are, and It's funny you should raise that, because we are actually involved in a program with Cesar at the moment. Some of the ADS-B things that are being pushed here in the US, because of the way the airspace is different and is carved up. Very similar mandates exist in Europe, but the interesting effect is that quite a lot of people in Europe will be exempt. A lot more light aircraft are exempt from any of the ADS-B mandates that are coming along than are required over here in the US. What we're actually trying to do is, rather than it being mandated, is encourage people, because there are still safety benefits to some of the next-gen technologies, particularly the ADS-B stuff. So Trig's actually involved in what's called a large-scale demonstration, which is actually a Cesar-sponsored project to demonstrate some of the benefits of ADS-B in Europe, in particularly the lighter end of aviation. So that's involving us equipping classic Part 23 type airplanes and smaller, microlights and so on, with ADS-B transponders, with traffic receivers, and with other equipment that will help in visual acquisition. The fact is that one of the things that is still a concern from a safety point of view in Europe is GA on GA mid-air encounters. The airline guys have got it solved and have had for years. They've got TCAS, and so that solves that for them. We still have a distressing number from time to time of mid-airs where it's GA on GA, and the GA guys perhaps quite rightly say, well, what's in it for me? And so taking some of that traffic capability that you get from ADS-B, demonstrating the benefits of that, and trying to get wider adoption is something that we're actually heavily involved in.
Are you finding that a lot of European pilots are interested in getting that technology and getting in their airplanes?
Absolutely. There's a lot of interest in that, and in seeing how that can benefit them. They always talk about the price, of course, but other than that, the technology is very attractive.
But they don't have the mandate that they have here at
Absolutely,
this point.
and one of the things that's surprising is that in Europe, where there isn't a mandate, there is, I think, more enthusiasm for self-fitting, just doing it, than there is here in the US, which is maybe a contrast. Maybe if big government tells you you have to do something, the instinctive reaction is to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Whereas if the technology is out there and the government says, no, I don't need you to do that, then people say, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So
it's cool, I want it.
It's cool, I want it, absolutely. I don't know whether there's a moral to that story for the FAA, but there you go.
It may be too little too late if there is.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
What is coming down the road for Trig? I mean, you've found kind of a nice niche in that small the small radio market, and now coming up into the standard rack panel size. But what is, when you sit down and you say, well, what's the next product we want to look at? Are you at liberty to talk about any of those things that get discussed around the conference table?
I can give some broad outlines.
Okay.
We're working on a stack. So we've got the transponder, we've got the audio panel, we've got the comm radio. You might easily assume that we're going to continue to develop stack products until we have a complete stack solution for mainstream Part 23 airplane. That's something that's a clear roadmap statement from Trig. Some of the ADS-B things, you know that we are one of the big suppliers of ADS-B equipment of all kinds. We're developing further in that. We're doing further work on transponders for different kinds of airplanes and different platforms. We are doing work on traffic. We are deploying our traffic receiver as part of this large-scale demonstration that's going on in Europe, and so you can certainly expect that to hit the market in due course afterwards.
So as we keep coming to these shows, you'll continue to have new fun things to come over here and talk about.
I hope so. I hope to have something to show you every time.
Well, Andy, it's always a great pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for your hospitality at your booth, and the folks who know you know what I'm talking about. We always appreciate talking with you, and thanks so much for taking some time to talk with us on Aero-TV.
Thank you very much.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 58th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Now certified, Aspen Avionics single-band ADS-B, ATX100, and ATX100G transceivers are the next-gen ADS-B solution that provides the features pilots need while keeping flyaway costs low. Check it out now at aspenavionics.com.
Avidyne provides innovative avionics solutions for general aviation aircraft, including the IFD 540 and IFD 440 FMS GPS navcoms with geofill, hybrid touch, and full ADS-B capability.
The KSN 770 is an affordable, WAS-enabled integrated MFD with a flexible hybrid user interface from Bendix King. Get your fingers on the 770's perfect blend of touchscreen and hard buttons. Easily control your GPS navigation, navcom, weather, traffic, and terrain in any condition. For more information, go to bendixking.com.
HeliSAS from Genesis Aerosystems is the FAA-certified, cost-effective, and reliable stability augmentation system and two-axis autopilot for light to medium helicopters. HeliSAS offers significant safety-enhancing benefits and still weighs less than 12 pounds. Visit www.genesis-aerosystems.com.
An interactive links application is available in the Apple and Android app stores. This free app is a virtual simulation of the Lynx NGT 9000 touchscreen cockpit display that lets pilots interact with the unit as if they had a real system in their hands. The app covers the entire Lynx family of ADS-B products, including features and options to help customers decide which Lynx model is right for their needs.
Meet SAM, the new 2-inch standby attitude module from Mid-Continent Instruments and Avionics. SAM's unique 2-screen display features high-definition graphics and extra-wide viewing angles. Get to know SAM today. Visit flysam.com.
Navworks makes ADS-B affordable. Certified or experimental, Navworks gives you high-quality next-gen avionics solutions that dramatically increase your situational awareness. Check us out now on the web at www.navworks.com.
The debate is no longer about upgrading GA aircraft with NextGen, it's about financing it. The NextGen GA Fund is about doing just that. Find out more at www.nextgenfund.com.